TitleMatchNetwork.com.
I was there, I guess, 2.5 years, something like that, when I was wrestling Hogan in Nashville, Tennessee. And one of the dumbest things that I've ever done in my life was allow NBC to put that table around for me to go through. No one had ever went through a table before me. No one had ever stood someone straight up in the air in a stand-up suplex or a double arm or whatever. There's a lot of things that I brought into the wrestling, including a lot of this stuff now they call hardcore. I dove through that table. Hogan had moved, and it had a 5-inch steel band around it. So the table went this way. The board part of it broke. The steel didn't.
Right.
So when I pushed to get up, it recoiled and hit me in the low abdomen. And if you don't see that you're hurt, you don't really pay that much attention to it. So about a month later at Wrestlemania IV at Trump Plaza, when I finished that night, I knew there was definitely something wrong with me. I flew back to Kansas City, called my doctor the next morning, and after that I went through 7 abdominal surgeries. But at that point, I knew I was done then.
Going back to the 80s, when you finally went, to the World Wrestling Federation, did you go in thinking it was going to be your final run?
Yeah, primarily. When I went up with Vince, I walked away from a $750,000 investment that it totally went sour. It was either do that and know that I had a few years there trying to recoup some of that, or stay there and tolerate the Crockett, Geigel, Gagne, that whole thing that had started to, they were trying to form their own little group in the Midwest. And Vince had already taken 90% of the television that we were on back then. He's been a very fortunate person to be able to use the antitrust laws in reverse.
Right.
Here's the guy saying, here's 29 different promoters trying to keep me from promoting wrestling, when it's one promoter trying to put everybody out of business. So yeah, I went up there, and
before that happened, what were your initial impressions of Vince when you first met him?
Vince, right to this day, I can't say this for absolute certainty because I have nothing to do with him anymore. If Vince told you, gave you his word on something, he'd keep that word. If you went in there and you didn't have a commitment from him, don't expect a whole hell of a lot.
Right.
But he kept his word with me.
Were you asked to change your name when you came in, or?
Yep. They went through a whole cycle of things with me, and I just kept saying no.
Right.
I'd spend the better part of 40 years making Harley Race to become Tom Thumb at the end of it. When I won the King of the Ring thing, and they give me Bobby Heenan as a manager. Henny and I had Bobby Heenan back in the 60s.
Right.
Bobby's a prince of a guy. He's a little stuck on himself, but other than that, he's a nice guy. They wanted me to walk out to the ring and say, I don't want to speak today, talk to Bobby. And I said, no, I don't think that's going to work either.
Mm-hmm. Right. Did the way the WF did business compare, did it hurt you compared to the old school? I mean, did it bother you, the way they were compared to the more cartoonish?
When Vince made the first statement, I forget what show it was on. He said, I control wrestling. I tell Hogan what to do. I tell anyone that works for me exactly what to do. I said, then, at some point, this thing's going to, but to hell, they're still going. They're still making tons of money.
TitleMatchNetwork.com